Hello. Unless you've been living under a rock, you'll know that SCR 2.0 released very recently, and with it came a few new and upgraded stations. In this video, I'll go through my opinions on each of the 68 stations and rank them from worst to best. So, let's get into the video. So, which station is the worst? Well, obviously, undoubtedly, clearly, it is Whitney Green. This station is the sole model that survives all the way back from version 1.0, which was over 6 years ago. The station is so boring, the scenery is just trees, the colour palette is just grey and brown, which makes the station look very ugly. There's just so much to hate about this station. Whitney Green will come in at number 68. At number 67, we have a much newer station, Hampton Hargate. The actual station isn't really much to look at, it's fine I guess. The problem with Hampton Hargate is the scenery. There isn't even anything to complain about here, there is no scenery. I'm genuinely shocked they chose to upgrade Edgemead and Morton Newton over this one in 2.0. This station is in dire need of refurbishment, and if we get past 2.1 and it remains the same, I will be rioting in the SCR Discord server. You have been warned. At number 66, we have a station quite near to Whitney Green. It's Morganstown Docks. The scenery is okay I guess, but the station itself is so boring. There's barely anything there. The station is just this weird orangey brown colour, and the entrance has absolutely no detail. Not to mention that this station is pointless, as the only thing nearby that this station connects to is the very close Port Benson station. At number 65, we have Hemden Park, the first of the stations on the Willowfield branch. The whole line is just a mess at this point, but the worst offender has to be Hemden Park. The scenery is just a couple of buildings and this fountain, but past this bridge there is just nothing for ages in both directions. I have no idea what the developers were thinking on this one, so this station gets a very low ranking from me. At number 64, we have Ellesmere Pond. It's just an average station, too average to look nice at all. This station is only meant to serve a few houses, and as it's limited, you'd barely ever need to stop here anyway. The level crossing is cool I guess, but it doesn't take away from an ultimately very boring station. At number 63, we have Upper Staplow. The station isn't terrible, and it actually looked quite nice when it released, but it's just simply fallen behind others which have been upgraded in the 3 years since this one. At number 62, we have New Harrow. Repeat exactly what I said about Ellesmere Pond, except this station has the edge because of the large market and overpass here, which gives the station more interesting scenery and a less boring vibe. At number 61, we have what I believe to be a very hot take. It's Faymere. This station was indeed upgraded in 2.0, but it feels like they didn't even try. The scenery has stayed exactly the same, and it's so boring because it's from 1.4, which was all the way back in 2019. The station is nothing more than a glorified car park with a railway station, which, although it uses present day models, is still pretty boring and keeps the same general design. So, sorry Faymere, but you only get 61st place. At number 60, we have Beachley. This is our second station to be on the Willowfield branch, and honestly, it's not that bad. The problem is, since it's from 1.6, the lack of detail makes it not the best compared to newer stations, even though the base design is okay. The scenery also lets it down a little. At number 59, we have Millcastle Racecourse. This station is pretty much in the middle of nowhere, with the actual entrance being about a mile away from the station, and the colour palette for the station and scenery is just grey. Said scenery is also very lackluster with not much to offer. No idea why they decided not to upgrade this one in 2.0 like they did with the nearby Millcastle. At number 58, we have High Street. This station has a very similar design to Beachley, with this station taking the cake because the scenery is much better right in the city centre, with much more hustle and bustle feel with the several tracks running right beside it, and the immediate transition into this lovely green area. The reason it isn't higher because this 90-degree curved platform is so annoying for dispatching and guarding. At number 57, we have Horton Rake. This is just another basic station, however the base model, such as these fences, although not being amazingly detailed, do make the station look a lot better, and I also like the location of the station, with the scenery being trees on a hill coming down from a small tunnel. This is starting to get difficult now. At number 56, we have Starry Lock. Starting to feel a pattern of non-upgraded Linen Line stations here. Anyway, Starry Lock was a great station when it released, and still is, it's just fallen behind others. The scenery is also not much to look at here, with the beautiful sea being obscured by these massive ugly bushes for whatever reason. At number 55, we have Cambridge Street Parkway. Cambridge Street Parkway for a long time was named as the worst station in SCR, however the 1.8 overhaul of this station didn't do much to quell that opinion. Although it's definitely better than before, they chose to stick with the horrible grey colour scheme, which means that this station still looks very bland and boring. The reason the station is this high is because the entrance drags it up a lot, as it looks very good, and the scenery is amazing because Wonder Mall is here. Not too sure about this motorway to the side magically transforming into a local street near the airport junction though. At number 54 we have Willowfield. By far the best station on its branch, the station is pretty good and detailed, especially this canopy. The depot is also half decent, however, like always, the scenery is what lets it down. It's very minimal, with a few lonely buildings and a street with some shops that just ends after a few meters. It feels like this scenery was done to the bare minimum, not actually to make it look nice, which is what I think drags this station down. At number 53, we have East Berrily. East Berrily is a 1.7 station and it looked quite nice at the time. However, as SCR standards have improved, this station has started to seem more and more outdated and undetailed, as the station is just 2 grass walls and the bench sign and light models repeated across every station. The scenery is also very bare bones. At number 52, we have East Berrily's sister station, Berrily. Berrily used to look very nice, but now it looks undetailed, with not much to look at in the entrance, concourse and waiting area, and the platforms are very bland looking. I can see that the attempt has been made with these plant pots, however there are no actual plants and it also looks very simple. The reason this one is better than East Berrily is because the scenery is much better with the varied buildings and disused siding. At number 51, we reach Bowden. It's very similar to Berrily in most aspects I mentioned, but Bowden is much better because the platforms are somewhat detailed. Also, dodgy Dave driveway.
I still refer to him as Dodgy Dave.
At number 50, we have West Benton. West Benton itself is probably as detailed as it can be for the tiny station as it is, if I'm going to be honest, but the scenery is what really makes it this low on the list. The scenery stretches so far and is so detailed it's amazing. It's the reason the Benton area, despite being from all the way back in 1.7, is still one of the best areas in game today. The reason the station is so low is because the station itself wasn't fantastically modelled and still leaves a lot to be desired, especially in the entrance area. At number 49 we get to Coxley. Coxley is in around the same area as the previous 2 stations, and it's at a similar level of quality. The sidings really aren't anything to look at, as they're basically just 2 extra tracks, and neither is the scenery, which is extremely lacklustre with very few buildings. The platforms got a refurbishment in version 1.10, and the new canopies look quite cool, which bring this station up above the others. At number 48 we have Greenslade. My reasoning for this one is pretty much the opposite as Coxley. The platforms are really nothing special, and for a station such as this in what seems to be a fairly busy area, this thin island platform may not be enough to suit passenger flow. Anyway, the station entrance and ticket office are quite cool and not really anything like any other station in SCR. And then we get out to the scenery, which is definitely the best part. This tramlink station is so cool, and these buildings give the station such a modern feel as well. At number 47, we have Stepford UFC. Stepford UFC was upgraded in 1.8 along with the other Whitefield line stations, and while the others have respectably detailed models, this one leaves a bit to be desired. The scenery is okay, the stadium is there and takes up quite a bit of space with a large car park, and a street filled with large shops. The station itself sacrifices aesthetics for realism in terms of the fact that many passengers will be using this station at once, but in doing so makes the station look quite lacking compared to some others. At number 46, we have Leighton Stepford Road. This is the last station here before we get into the good ones, and in the case of Leighton Stepford Road, it's quite disappointing. The station was upgraded in 1.8 to look like Edinburgh Haymarket, and although there were some lacking areas such as the entrance and concourse, the station overall looked quite good. Then 2.0 came around, and for some reason SCR felt the need to remove all the pink from the station, making it look even more grey and bland and making it look so much worse. I honestly have no idea why they did this, and that is why LSR is being ranked so low. By the way, SCR devs, please revert LSR back to the way it was before. It was so much better. Please, thank you. Coming in at number 45, we have Woodhead Lane. I think this is the station that executes the rural ride the best. The platforms being staggered and on stilts is a really good idea, and the scenery is also quite immersive and stretches far. At number 44 we have Whitefield. Its entrance is nothing special, neither is its depot or scenery really, but what drags it up is the actual station building. This canopy, car park and platforms are quite detailed and they've recreated Eastbourne quite accurately. Good job! At number 43 we find ourselves at Connolly. This station is from 1.0 and it's aged amazingly well, and although it isn't the most details, it retains quite nicely given its age. The thing that really drags up this station is its scenery. It got a refresh in 1.8 and it now looks incredible, with the coloured houses reminding me of a certain old British kids TV programme.
It's the menopause!
And the streets have quite a nice design, not to mention the boats in the river. A nice, however rarely used, terminus station. At number 42 we have Leighton West. It's quite a small station added in 1.8, but what we do have is pretty detailed. The scenery is small but compact and detailed, with the line itself having some pretty good scenery, and the platform has a nice design, along with the abandoned platform giving the station some character. At number 41 we have Benton Bridge. Benton Bridge is a station not really considered by many SCR players to be good, but although the interior of the station may be quite lackluster, these platforms, station building and scenery are incredibly detailed and modern looking, with the actual model for Benton Bridge also looking pretty nice. Good job! At number 40 we reach Bewley Park. Bewley Park is a lovely rural station with minimalistic but nice looking scenery, including a signal box, and the platforms are surprisingly detailed for 1.7. Number 39 brings us to Port Benton. Port Benton is from 1.8, and the vibe of the station is executed very well, with brilliant scenery and decent platforms with decorations. The thing dragging it down is the loop for Connect trains to travel back to Benton, as this is possibly the area in SCR with the worst scenery in the game. Still good station though. At number 38 we have Morganstown. Morganstown is from 1.7 and it looked amazing when it released. However, there are some things dragging it down from being great. 1. The scenery. Morganstown's scenery is limited to these few buildings, and that's basically it. Not good at all. 2. The Morganstown flyover. Possibly the most cursed abomination in the game. It's super unrealistic in the first place for trains to go over, let alone huge speedy express trains. 3. The Morganstown triangle. This awful mess is from 1.1 and they haven't even tried to correct it since then. Seriously, fix the Morganstown triangle. At number 37 we have Whitefield Lido. This station was last updated in 1.8 and its model retains nicely, although its scenery has started to slip behind others in the game, such as the Newry line and the airport. Number 36 takes us to Faraday Road. The station itself isn't much to see, with the platforms, despite being from all the way back in 1.1, having a nice modern feel without feeling too unpolished. The scenery, which was overhauled in 1.9, is definitely the best part, with the depot now being huge and super detailed. Nice job, SCR. At number 35 we have Airport West, the first airport station we've mentioned so far, and Airport West is undoubtedly the worst. The station just feels so odd, with the incredibly lacking entrance leading to the half-exposed, half-underground with weird poles and walls that are just, I don't know. Not the greatest fan of this station. Of course, however, this station is from 1.10, and the reason it isn't lower is because of the scenery, tunnel models, and also the platforms are extremely detailed despite looking very weird. At number 34 we have Sthlm Park. Sthlm Park is from version 1.9.1 and its model is very detailed, being based off of Reston, and I especially like the footbridge, which is quite unique. However, the scenery. There's barely scenery to comment on in the first place, however the sort of park-like square with shops and houses that we do have is quite decent, so I'll give them that. At number 33 we have Leighton City. It's from 1.8, so it's obviously decent. However, there's just a little bit missing. I never really clicked with this station as much as I did with some others. I don't know if it's the scenery or just the general vibe of the station, but there is something lacking. Just as a disclaimer, all the stations from here on out are extremely well designed, and I'm using the smallest of details as justification for my rankings here. So if your favourite station is low down, don't worry, all the stations in SCR, apart from Wintney Green and Hampton Hargate, are great, and everyone is entitled to their own opinion. So, number 32. We have City Hospital, which, despite being from 1.10, is not as good as some others. However, these rainbow lights are cool. These pillows down below are a little uninteresting, as is the scenery. The platform is cool and spacious, with the roof definitely providing something unique. The detail isn't fantastic, however, and the shape of the island platform is also a little odd, though that's an incredibly minor nitpick. At number 31, I'm going to say Rocket Parade. The entrance is nice with the modern neon sign, but the trench feel is a bit odd and the scenery isn't really anything more than a few buildings. The platforms are decent enough, though I think I'd like it better if this roof extended a bit further down the platform. The next spot was difficult, but I'm going to stick with my gut and go for Stepford East. The platforms are amazingly detailed and the concourse is very decent as well, but the other entrances apart from the main one are quite lacking, and the roof of the concourse also leaves a lot to be desired. At number 29, I'm going to say Benton. Benton is from 1.7, and although the model is great, it's grown to be a little grey and boring in the years since its release. Scenery is great, however. At number 28, I'll go with Ellesmere Junction. The scenery is what lets it down, with a spacious but very undetailed entrance and concourse. Platforms are great, with an extension being done in 2.0 to hopefully accommodate longer trains in the very near future. At number 27, we have Water Newton. This one looked great when it came out in 1.7, and it got a much needed refresh in 2.0, however the main design of the station has been kept the same, and the platforms are aging to be a bit lacking unfortunately. At number 26, I'm going to put Stepford Victoria. Although it was upgraded in 2.0, the base model was kept the same as it's from 1.6. It was unfortunately unsalvageable and the station isn't as good as it could have been in the current version. Still great though, despite these copy and pasted lights. At number 25 goes Financial Quarter. The station along from Stepford Victoria, and it looks great, being from 1.8. I've just grown a bit bored of it over the years, although I don't really know why. There's just something about it that I don't really like that much. This was a really tough decision, as this was my favourite station in the game for a while, but I have to put Eden Quay at number 24. The station isn't really the best, despite having a nice cosy feel, and the station is just copy and pasted streets and houses. So sorry Eden Quay, but you'll always be an amazing station. This is when it gets really tight. I have chosen to put Lynn by the Sea at number 24. 23. It's a massive station and the scenery is half decent. The concourse is great too, however some aspects of the station has little imperfections that drag it down. I also think they've added way too many grit bins, and also these speakers being on the overhead line poles is a little weird. I have chosen to put Edgemead at number 22. Edgemead was fine to begin with, but it received a refresh in 2.0 to accommodate the new extension. Unfortunately, it isn't really the best they could have made it, however, some parts are incredibly detailed, such as the entrance and waiting shelter next to it. The waiting shelter on the island platform, however, looks incredibly boring, and other parts look quite bland as well, however. Still great station. The next one is probably a hot take, but I will put Aslockby at number 21. The staggered platforms is a good idea, and the footbridge is incredibly detailed, but the scenery leaves a lot to be desired. It's very empty, and the line around it is mostly bushes, which is fine, but it definitely could be better. There's an odd building here and there, and it does capture the rural feel nicely, but it's just empty. Westercoast is going at number 20. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it hasn't been updated in a while, and although the scenery is very detailed, the station itself is odd, with the new footbridge not really fitting in with the oldish style the station had before, not mentioning the boring tunnel on the south side of the station. Airport Parkway is in number 19, and it might be the blandest of the main airport stations. The scenery is great, but this high up the list we've come to expect brilliant things from these stations. Entrances and footbridge are a bit grey, however the platforms are extremely detailed. Airport Parkway gets spot number 19. Spot number 18 goes to Newry Harbour, and I'm giving Hold up, wait a minute, let me just remake my script. I've fixed my script, let's go. Spot number 18 goes to Newry Harbour. I love the feel of the station with the port and freight depot, this canopy and waiting area, and the ramp down to the platforms. However, this giant cruise ship is questionable. At number 17 we have Esterfield. Esterfield is from version 1.10, and in my opinion it's just a little bit more boring than the other stations on its line. The canopy is the main thing to look at here, with the scenery being great but the platforms quite boring and average. Number 16 goes to Airport Terminal 2. Terminal 2 has a pretty small entrance for what it is as the primary airport terminal. However, the platforms are very spacious and detailed, with the scenery also being great. Not too much of a fan of the colour palette though, which is why it drops below the other airport stations. At number 15 we have Newry. Newry is very similar to Newry Harbour, pretty obvious with them being very close to each other, but Newry stands out because of the varied track layout and the scenery being more interesting town on the coast like buildings as opposed to one road and a pretty questionable massive cruise ship. Number 14 is going to Angel Pass. It was upgraded in 1.10.4 to look much better than the blocky mess it was before, learn from this Whitney Green, and the station itself is brilliant now. The only reason that this goes at number 14, despite this being one of the most detailed stations in the game, is because of its scenery. Seriously, the scenery around Angel Pass and the Bowden Viaduct is atrocious. Make this part of the map less one grass base plate and this could very easily be one of the best stations in SCR. At number 13 we have Stepford Central. The base model for the main station in SCR was built by Eureb for version 1.4.2 and it holds up pretty well to this day. However, it was starting to slip behind. I was even making a video about this, so thanks SCR for making me scrap that one. But anyway, I can't complain because in 2.0 it was upgraded to look brilliant. Seriously, the trailer made it seem like they hadn't touched this station, but I'm so glad they did because now it looks so much better, and that is why Stepford Central goes so high up the list. North Shore is going at number 12. North Shore wasn't the best station before 2.0, but in said update, it was given a facelift to be owned by Express, and the model was given a very nice improvement, and now it's really detailed, and the depot is also extremely well modelled and deserving of the 12th best station in game. The penultimate spot, number 11, will go to Airport Terminal 3. The scenery, brilliant. The platforms, brilliant. The only complaint I have is the entrance. Seriously, the capacity of this small, grey and undetailed entrance is very unrealistic, and it's what makes this station slip behind the top 10. These next 10 stations are the very best of the best. SCR has high standards, and I believe that these 10, St Helens Bridge, Airport Central, Millcastle, West Wyvern, James Street, Terminal 1, Farley, Rosedale Village, Carnally Bridge and Rayleigh Bay, do the best job at executing this. Which station will come out on top? Let's see. The worst of these stations, and at spot number 10 we have Rosedale Village. The station is really good, I like the rural vibe of the station. What keeps it apart from the others is its lack of good scenery. Rosedale's scenery is very minimalistic, which I get if it's a small village, but the scenery of other stations in this top 10 definitely trump this one. One of the stations that does not fit that category is James Street. It's a great station overall, with the platforms, albeit being on the thin side, are incredibly detailed. The entrance is cool too, however it's incredibly small under this building to the point where, if you were travelling around the area in which James Street is located, you might struggle to find or notice the station when walking by. That's why James Street comes in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 we have Airport Terminal 1, which is similar to James Street with it being underground, even though T1 didn't bother with an actual entrance at all and just closed off this ticket hall with shops and some fake walkways to the actual Terminal 1 building, which does exist by the way. However, it's unreachable from the Terminal 1 spawn area, which is a little bit embarrassing. The reason that this is higher than James Street is because when you walk onto the one and only platform here, you will see that it's one of the best and most detailed platforms in the game, so great job! There aren't many stations left to go now. I will place Rayleigh Bay and Carnally Bridge at spots number 6 and 7. These stations, both being from 2.0, are in roughly the same area with incredibly detailed scenery. Since the scenery makes them almost inseparable, I will put Carnally Bridge at number 7 simply because the station is smaller, whilst Rayleigh Bay gets the edge at number 6 because it's bigger, with more room for things like canopies and proper entrances with waiting areas, all of which Rayleigh Bay has, and it makes the station a lot better. The honourable mention for the best station in the game, however, does have to go to Carnally Bridge, because potatoes is there. I could not separate Airport Central and Farley, so they're at spots number 4 and 5. In Farley's case, the station is very well modelled and detailed, with the model representing its inspiration, Surrey Quays, exceptionally well. For Airport Central, the whole massive station throughout is detailed, with the concourse and platforms being amazingly accurate, and, do you know what? I think I just talked myself into giving Airport Central the 4th place spot above Farley. Great job, Airport Central. So, we give Farley 5th and Airport Central 4th. So, we've now reached the podium, the top 3 spots. In 3rd place, I have chosen Millcastle. I love the whole design of the station. Its scenery is very cool with the buildings surrounding the cut-in that Mill Castle itself is in, and of course the iconic playing fields further up. The station itself is super cool and detailed, reminding me of Haymarket in Edinburgh. Learn from this, Leighton Stepford Road. Aside from that, the whole station gives a good vibe throughout, so great job. At number 2, we have St Helens Bridge. The station has a brilliantly detailed design throughout, with the station being very and the waiting areas also having a nice colour scheme. The entrance looks great too, with this curved wall adding to the overall great vibe of the station. So, here we are. Massive props if you A, watched this far into the video, and B, know which station is coming next, because I believe that the best station in SCR, as of version 2.0.0, is West Wyvern. Yes, here I said it, West Wyvern is the best station in SCR. I just love the huge design of the station, the poles, the lounge, the scenery, the sidings, just everything about this station is so detailed and amazing, and I love it. And that is why I believe that West Wyvern is the best station in SCR. So, thank you so much for watching this incredibly long video. If you're still here after almost 26 minutes, I thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider giving me a like and subscription, as it helps the algorithm to promote this video to more people who might like it. What else can I say? This was very tiring to record 7 pages of my script all in one go, so thank you for waiting for this video. This is the first video that I recorded in my new setup, so that's cool too. And how SCR version 2.0 triggers you is coming very, very soon, so look out for that one. See ya.